And welcome to Waterloo Human Rights in a hot Mississippi Minute. I'm the Executive Director of Waterloo Human Rights, Abraham L. Funches Jr. And today we want to talk to you about something that I think you will find very, very relevant as it pertains to your right in what we consider to be a democratic society here in the United States of America. But before we go to the subject matter at hand today, I think it's important to just remind everyone about the importance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was the first charter proclaiming the 30 rights to which every human being is entitled. And today we want to focus on one of those articles that I think you're going to find very relevant as we begin to discuss this issue regarding the new proposed Iowa constitutional amendment language around gun law. Please note that Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights dealt with the right to democracy, the right for people to be engaged, the right for people to vote so that they can choose the leaders that they want to lead them. And of course, we always push that people learn to vote their interests. One of the things that are happening right now in the Waterloo context is there's a new commission, a neighborhood commission, concerned about gun violence erupting in certain pockets of community in the city. And of course, it has a deleterious impact on the way we're able to do business, the way we are able to celebrate quality of life issues here in the local context. Well, I want to say to you that regardless of what happens on the local level, if this proposed gun law is passed on the state level, it may make what's happening on the local level moot. So this is why we're having this particular discussion today, because I think you will find it very, very relevant. I hope, through a show like this, that we're engaging in education and outreach, which will tickle your imagination, just like our MLK Freedom Bus Tour, so that you can be engaged in the local context. Now, again, in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights had developed the first charter that's proclaiming 30 rights to which every human being is entitled, and one of those rights was Article 21 that dealt with the right to democracy, to take part in the government. And so let me just tell you now about this particular piece of legislation that's being proposed that I think you need to know something about. The proposed Iowa constitutional amendment language is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, it says. The sovereign state of Iowa affirms and recognizes this right to be a fundamental individual right. Any and all restrictions of this right shall be subject to strict scrutiny. That's where it becomes somewhat problematic. And of course, I'm getting this information that's been paid for by Iowans for Responsible Gun Laws. And so I think it's only fair that I share the source of this information with you. But check this out. This is critically important. Why do responsible gun owners and gun dealers oppose this particular amendment? Well, it could prohibit reasonable safety measures that they support, like firearm safety training, universal background checks, and a license to carry a gun in public. We just need to pause there for a second, because when you think about what's happening in New York, when you think about what happened in Uvalde, Texas, and all of these other places where someone allegedly got involved in either direct shooting or there were rumors of these persons being involved with some shooting or proposed shooting, and then we find out that they had some mental health issues. Well, this particular law will prohibit our ability as a citizenry to even do universal background checks to determine whether or not someone should even have a gun in their possession. That will severely complicate what we're trying to do here in the local context with the neighborhood commission designed to try to tackle gun violence in our community, violence of any kind in our community. These little eruptions that just irritate and aggravate many of the things that a lot of our business owners and whatnot are trying to do. People are trying to engage in quality life experiences and this kind of stuff. Look, it doesn't matter what you try to do in the local context. If this proposed law is passed. Listen, how will gun safety laws be impacted if this amendment passes? Well, the amendment will give easy access to guns for those with mental health concerns who may be a risk to themselves and others. Already, 79% of gun deaths in Iowa are suicides. Isn't that tragic? In 2020, homicides by guns increased in Iowa by 80%. Tragic. The amendment will make the work of law enforcement more dangerous and Iowans less safe at a time of rising crime. It will give dangerous and violent criminals access to guns and will mean more untrained people carrying guns in public. And I know some of you are already alarmed when you see someone walking inside a public accommodation like a Walmart or a CVS store, and they got a gun around their waist, and you're feeling funny just to see them walk in with a gun around their waist. That is why law enforcement opposes this proposal. It is very important that you need to understand that law enforcement officials, like our own public police chief, our own Sheriff Tony Thompson, others, they are already opposed to this gun legislation because of the deleterious impact it will have on a community like Waterloo, Cedar Falls, the Metroplex. These are things that we have to think about. Look, this is not the Second Amendment. Most states that have gun rights language in their state constitution mirror the Second Amendment. The proposed amendment, in this case, goes way beyond the Second Amendment. It puts the right to possess and carry a gun without any infringement above the right to public safety for our communities and our children, our babies out here. This gun proposal could lead to the invalidation of any reasonable gun safety measures that keep Iowans safe. Now, I think it's important to talk about this because I want you to know that there's an overwhelming number of supporters that have, colluded to fight against this proposal. 91% support banning carrying a firearm while under the influence of drugs or alcohol. 85% support prohibiting felons from possessing firearms. 85% support requiring background checks on all gun purchases. 83% support requiring gun safety courses before the purchase of a handgun. And this particular proposed legislation, which will be on the ballot November 8, will undo all of this work that has been put in by different constituencies all across the state, including what's happening here in the Metroplex. So remember, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has a charter trying to outline what your rights are. And Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights talks about the right to engage in democracy, the right to engage in the franchise of the vote, the idea of being able to pick your leaders. Look, it is high time that we began to vote your interests. If you are concerned about gun violence, gun law in the local context, then you need to familiarize yourself with this proposed Iowa constitutional amendment language around gun law. It will make things extremely difficult for us to provide the kinds of protections that we want for vulnerable constituencies here in the local context, especially our children. We want you to know your right when it comes to engaging in a democracy. And that is not just something that, we philosophize about. This is something that is critical to your basic right to engage in all of the freedoms and protections that the United States of America allows for someone who is considered citizen, especially within the local context. So please know that here we are trying to keep you apprised of what's happening here in the state of Iowa as it will impact what you're doing in the local context. Know your rights. This is Abraham Funchess, World of Human Rights, in a hot Mississippi Minute.